Today in the pedal vault, the Boss OverDrive / Distortion OS-2.
The Boss OS-2 seems to be made for all you cheapos out there who wanna have maximum flexibility with a minimal amount of money spent. It can be found fairly cheap on the used market, and it claims to combine your favorite overdrive with your favorite distortion. So, in my dreams, this would mean it's an SD2 Super Overdrive combined with a DS2 or a DS1 distortion pedal from Boss. So let's have a look. We have 4 controls: the volume, the tone control, the drive control, and the so-called color control. This color control lets you smoothly change your sound from an overdrive to a distortion sound. Now let's have a look at the EQ curve. We see the typical high and low cuts. Low is rather drastic. Now when we increase the volume, we see that indeed just the volume is increased. There is no smoothing out of the EQ curve. Tone seems to be kind of subtle in this setting. It basically changes the peak of this one broad top. It's around 3 kilohertz, I think. Okay, so drive adds bass, adds volume, and when we crank it, doesn't do much. Okay. And now the color control. Adds high frequencies, adds low frequencies, basically smoothens out the curve. And when we are around 9 or 10, it actually makes this gap around the 500, 600 Hertz region. Now, when we crank the drive knob now, there's actually loss in high frequencies and a huge boost in the low frequencies. And tone actually just a high cut, or it reduces the high frequencies, and when we crank it, it increases the peak at around 5 or 6 kilohertz. Okay, that's it for the theory. Now let's hear how this pedal actually sounds. For the live review part, I chose a different amp and cap setting, and I chose my, it seems to be new favorite clean sound. It's the Brit 800 Modern with a rather cleanish setting or breakup setting, and the amp goes into a Jens Bogren IR. It's the yellow Progger one. Here's the sound. And now let's see what the overdrive / distortion can do. It gets harsh rather quickly, so you have to keep this in mind. And now I will morph the sound. Yeah, so you really have to be careful not to dial in too much of the distortion, because it nearly instantly sounds muddy or fuzzy and in a bad way, so I don't like it. But when you just add a little bit of distortion, it sounds really good, at least in this particular setting. Okay, now one more riff and then comes the verdict.
So I actually have two verdicts this time. Let me start with the verdict for the overdrive channel. I think it's a really good overdrive. It has plenty of distortion, the tone control works nicely, and it gives me a really nice chunky sound both in front of the clean amp as well as on the distorted amp. I have to do some more research in order to see how close it really is to the Boss Super Overdrive SD1. So maybe I'm gonna replace my SD1, or maybe I can use it as another color. I don't know yet. The distorted channel, however, I didn't like the sound at all. It was fizzy, weak sounding, didn't give me much. The blend feature is really cool, but I can only see myself using it in front of a distorted amp, because in front of a clean amp, the fizziness and the weakness suddenly turns in when you just crank the blend control a tiny bit. So for clean purposes, I would just use the overdrive. For distorted purposes, I can see myself using a tiny bit of distortion, so this fizzy channel to give it a bit more character, maybe to drive my amp even more, but I still much prefer the overdrive instead of the distortion. But let me know, what do you think about this pedal? Do you think as well that the distortion sounds awful, or do you think the distortion sounded even better than the overdrive? Let me know down in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching, don't forget to subscribe, may the force be with you, and have a nice day.